failure to plan. I think underestimating how much of your expenses are absorbed in your business now when you're projecting how much money you're going to need in the future, and really not being prepared for the deep dive and due diligence that's going to be required if someone's going to pay a significant price for your business. And nobody wants to be told their baby is ugly, but the job of the other side of that transaction is to find all the warts and the flaws in your business. So having someone on your side that's already done that deep dive to really flesh out what those things are and how you might cover them and protect yourself is a really important piece of having this team of advisors put together to prepare you for exit.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
We look at value acceleration. Specifically, how do you accelerate your value of your company before you plan to exit? You may not want to exit this year, next year, or even 5 years from now. But there's some things that you should know now so that you can prepare for your value acceleration moment that is to come. You may want to sell your business to your employees. You may want to sell your business to private equity or some other strategic player, but you want to make sure you are prepared no matter what happens, because that's what you do. You look around the corners. You are the visionary for your business. And if you're the founder or CEO of a company, then you want to make sure that you understand what we talk about today. Our guest today is founder and CEO of 12 Points Wealth Management. We're with Dave Clayman, and Dave really shares the gaps that are common, and people just don't understand what those 3 gaps are when they look at their money before the exit. We also look at what really goes into the factors of valuing your company. We look at the most critical factor, which I'll tell you right now, is does your business run without you? Now, if you already know the answer to that, then you want to make sure you stick around, because I'm here to help you understand that across all of the podcast episodes I create, because my job is to make sure you are the CEO of your company, that your people really understand how to take ownership of their work and the client experience and their goals so that you can actually be the visionary for the company. If you want to check out some of the free resources, just go to genehammett.com. If you think you might be a good fit for the community of other fast growth company leaders we have, just check out Fast Growth Boardroom. Inside that group, we get together and we talk about what does it take to be an extraordinary leader to create a business that does run without you, one that maximizes its value, and all of the things necessary for you to prepare for an eventual exit someday. Just go to Fast Growth Boardroom. If you think you're a fit, I'd love you to apply, and I'd love to get to know you and help you with your next steps absolutely for free. Create that game plan just for you. It's all customized, it's all free, and it's just for fast growth leaders that want to grow faster than they are today. Now, here's the interview with Dave. Dave, how are you?
Very well, Gene. How are you?
I am fantastic. We're going to have a great talk today about exit strategy, what we should be doing to prepare in advance of any exit day that might be coming in the future. Before we dive into that, tell us a little bit about 12 Points Wealth Management.
Sure. Thanks for asking. So 12 Points Wealth Management was founded in 2014 by myself and 2 of my other co-founders when we left Morgan Stanley, looking to create a firm that really was devoted to its clients. And the name comes from the 12 points of the Scout Law, the first of which to be trustworthy. And in the financial services industry was voted the least trusted industry in America when we were founding the firm. So we thought that was a good place to start.
Yeah, I've done some professional speaking to these different organizations, and I did find that trust was one of the things that they struggle with. Why do you think that is?
Well, look, as you're living through 2007, 2008, there were a lot of people that were doing things that were not above board. There were always a lot of hidden fees in our industry, unfortunately. And up until advisors become fiduciaries, they are allowed to sell whatever product potentially pays them a higher commission, even though it may not be different than another for the client. So that was something that the industry has struggled with for a really long time.
I think I've been a victim of that. Can't say for sure, but I've had to unwind a few things that I don't think a lot of other advisors said, oh, that's probably not the best strategy for you given where you were and where you're going. Dave, we had a great conversation around what does it take to exit your company for the most value. You've got some certifications along this journey. Why is pre-planning for your exit such an important thing to do?
Well, I think there's a few things. It's determining how ready are you personally and financially to exit the business, and then also how attractive is your business. We take a look at 3 gaps that really every business owner should know, and then assess where do they stand and where do they want to go.
You can't leave us hanging like that. What are those 3 gaps?
So the first gap is your wealth gap. Your wealth gap is how much money do you need to live the rest of your life? So you have to have a financial plan, and most business owners are so busy running their business, they haven't stopped to do that, versus what do you have now outside of your business? So that provides how much does your business need to provide to you to fill your wealth gap. Your second gap is your profit gap. What is your EBITDA versus best in class in your industry's EBITDA? So if your EBITDA is 15% and best in class is 20%, that's a significant difference. And then lastly, your value gap. What multiple does a company with best in class EBITDA in your industry earn versus what multiple would your company be worth at your current EBITDA? Company might be worth 3 to 4 times as much if you think about getting to world-class margins and then world-class, best-in-class valuations.
Have you seen any people that started to go down this exit strategy that just weren't prepared with maybe those 3 gaps, and just probably a lot of things they're not prepared with, but they're probably rushing it as opposed to doing it with intention?
I have. And think about that. Think about how hard you work every day and the idea you're going to suddenly increase your EBITDA over 3 months, 6 months. Not very likely. Also, what factors come into your valuation, your multiple? There are a lot of intangibles. Can the business run without you? That's a really serious thing. I'll be honest, right now, 12 points, not saleable. We're still building to replace me as we're only 7 years old. So how do you do that? Is your customer base diversified? How are you viewed in the community? All of those things aren't things that get built up overnight.
Now, let's slow down for a second here. Dave just said this key question: does your business run without you? Now, be honest with yourself. If you're still involved with sales, you still involved with the operations side of the business, if you don't have all of the details where people really understand how to take ownership of their work, if your executive leadership team is not dialed in and they're empowered in such a way that you don't have to be there day in, day out, then you are really in a business that doesn't run without you. And so you want to make sure you're really intentional about what your next steps are. My big focus inside my business as an executive coach is to help you create that kind of business of freedom, help you create a business that runs without you. If you want to get a free assessment, you want to get a free insight that is customized specifically to you, then just go to genehammett.com and click Start Your Journey. I'm here to serve you and help you create a business that runs without you. Now back to Dave. I'm glad you mentioned that because that's one of the areas I actually work in. Can your business run without you? I had a client of mine who, no intention of selling, but wanted to let his executive team run the business. They were trying to step up, and we just kind of looked at him stepping away and letting them run. And so for the last 8 months, he started another business, took it to 8 figures. And while his company is being run by his entire executive team from previous, it's a big testament to where he is and what his ability to do that. But I know you guys don't dive into the business running without you. You stay on the financial side. So I'm going to steer us back to that, Dave. When you think about this, where do people make mistakes in exit planning?
I think the thing you've mentioned a couple times now, the failure to plan. I think underestimating how much of your expenses are absorbed in your business now when you're projecting how much money you're going to need in the future, and really not being prepared for the deep dive and due diligence that's going to be required if someone's going to pay a significant price for your business. And nobody wants to be told their baby is ugly. But the job of the other side of that transaction is to find all the warts and the flaws in your business. So having someone on your side that's already done that deep dive to really flesh out what those things are and how you might cover them and protect yourself is a really important piece of having this team of advisors put together to prepare you for exit.
At what point do you recommend someone have their books audited by someone else?
Well, I think certainly if you're thinking about exiting, you want to do that 3 years in advance. But also, yes, it talks about exit planning. My designation is Certified Exit Planning Advisor, but really it's value acceleration, because the time could be ripe for you to sell soon, and it could fill your gaps, even though you weren't necessarily intending to do it, because you might come to a fork in the road where you either have to invest or sell. You might come to a fork in the road where suddenly your business is worth so much more just because the multiple of the cycle is so good. Think about a farm with grain prices going crazy right now. Any of those kind of things. There's just different times, and always being prepared for that moment that you could walk away is a great position to put yourself in. Then you're in control.
I want to look at the gaps a little bit more in detail, because I think that it's easy to kind of brush over those and think you've got them. So I took notes on this. The wealth gap, what is often missed there? I know you ran through a couple of things, but let's just really put a spotlight on that.
Yeah, I think that it's the ability to really understand what you want out of the rest of your life, both for your personal and for any philanthropic endeavors you may have, and understanding what those numbers really mean. If you're going to stop, get out of your business at age 65, you'd have another 30 years to go. How much money truly is that? And have you truly sat down as a couple and sorted that out? And what about if you have business partners? If you have partners, have you each sat down with each other and discussed, this is what I need the business to bring me to live my life? Do we have the same vision? Are you ready to leave now and I need to buy you out so that I can get the business to where I need it to be? Is that a decision I want to make? Those are big ones that are missed. And I think, again, the other one, just people don't realize how many expenses and how many different things you run through your business in the course of running the business.
I had one of my clients talk to me about someone in his industry had sold, and it was an impressive number. But if you peel back the layers, he was paying himself $5 million a year. He netted $5 million after taxes. And so 4 years into it, he could really see the writing on the wall of like, I've almost spent all the money. I've got to go back to work and do something else, because I didn't, anticipate that my level of lifestyle was not shifting as I no longer was working. Mm-hmm. When you see people exiting, or do you help them actually figure out that lifestyle shifts and get really honest about what does it take for you to make this money stretch?
We do. We say there's really 3 legs to the stool of preparing to exit. One is the business, one is your personal financial, and the other is your personal and mental facet. What is life after the business? What does that look like? Do you want to consult? Do you want to take board seats? Do you want to do a philanthropic endeavor? I have a running joke. I came into the office most days through the pandemic and people asked me why. And I said, my wife and I have a lovely agreement. It's for better or worse, but not for lunch. So, it's the same kind of thing when you exit your business. Have you thought about that? Have you prepared yourself for the first day a paycheck doesn't come in? What does that feel like? We had a business owner just sell recently. He's staying on for 3 years. I called him the Friday after his first week as non-owner and asked, how'd that go? How'd that feel? What are you struggling with this week? What are the challenges versus what we talked about? And it was just great to have that conversation and be kind of a sounding board for him, because it was different. He was the boss for 32 years.
Do you have any numbers on how many people are asked to stay on after they exit versus there's a workout period where you're like transferring over, whatever knowledge you can, and 3 months later you're done? I know I've seen a lot of my clients choose both paths. What do you see?
Well, if it's a strategic buyer or private equity, they probably want you to stay on for quite some time, usually 2 to 3 years. We actually just had another client who begged and borrowed to get out of there. He had been the CEO of his company for 30 plus years, and he wasn't ready to be someone's employee. He hated the structured meetings and all the things that went into being part of a private equity owned entity. And they wouldn't let him resign. They went 3 months without letting him resign. He walked away from $6 million worth of additional payout because he hated it so much. And it's a real black eye for the private equity company if someone walks away, because they want to be able to say to the next acquiree, look, you can talk to Mark and hear about what his experience with us was. You can talk to John and hear about how great it was and how he kept his vision. It's a real black eye for him not to stay on.
I've had a cousin of mine who has exited multiple times, and the first one, he definitely did not stay around. And I know the second one, I think it was a 6-month period.
Wow,
but he specifically arranged for it to be that way. So you do have some flexibility with what that looks like, but you may have to give up a little bit of profit or money to make that happen. Are you seeing that kind of conversation go down to negotiations?
You definitely can negotiate out your time and get it back in exchange for money. But I think it's also a question to our earlier conversation. How ready is the business to run without you? If you're I met with two business owners last week and they said, we generate 70% of the sales here. I said, well, if someone's buying you, they're going to want you around for 3 years. That's a big problem. So I think that that's definitely things that you see is, okay, how ready is the business to run without you? Well, it's not. Then we need you for this amount of time. Well, if you want your life back sooner, then you're going to have to give back significant amounts of money. So it's all about what are you trying to maximize? Your lifestyle, your value, dollars. What do you need to live where you want to go?
Let's zero in on that whole conversation of the business running without you. Obviously, if you're generating sales for the business in some capacity, maybe you're just bringing across the top finish line, but that's still your involvement into sales. What are the other factors that outsiders are looking at to see if your business runs without you?
Sure. So do you have procedures and processes in place for everything that happens? Do you have an operations manual? Do you have a strong leadership team that has been there for a long period of time? Are they likely to stay through the transition? Have you locked them up so that they will be incentivized to stay throughout the transition? Those are all things that can indicate, yes, Dave can walk away, but the rest of the team is here. Or nope, Dave has Gene, but Gene's been here for 35 years and he gets a big paycheck when we buy them out too. So we're in trouble if Dave doesn't stay.
I want to go back to negotiations. There's a whole lot of pre-planning, which, we've got to get that right. But what do you learn from all the negotiations you've been in of things that you just really want to be prepared for when you sit down with someone to talk about a number?
I think the first one is, again, be prepared that they are going to try to beat you up. They are going to try to find everything ugly about your company. So having thought this through with a great partner to show you the flaws from your own side and being prepared for that. I've seen deals fall apart just because the things that were said in the room and the owner not being prepared. This was before I had gone through this practice a number of times and hadn't mentally prepared the owner for that. So that's a big one. Another thing is, what discounts are they going to be looking for? So is it my staff might be able to leave? Is it how many key customers do I have? Am I diversified? Is it how has my retirement plan run according to plan all this time? Do I have any potential liabilities hiding in there? Are there environmental liabilities that I need to worry about? All of those things can be big factors in negotiations.
Well, we've had a really good conversation about planning for your exit someday. This was not intended to be about what do you do today if you want to sell, next week. But is there anything that we haven't covered that you feel like is really important to this conversation?
I think the biggest thing that people don't know, and I touched this briefly, is it used to be that the value of a company was very heavy in tangible assets. And now about 80% of most businesses are intangible assets that come down to the value of your company. So making sure that you've covered, if you will, your 4 C's, your structural capital, those policies and procedures, your social capital, how you look inside the business and outside the business in your community, your employee culture, your cultural capital, and then your customer capital, how well diversified you are. So I'd look at those 4 C's as the key pieces to preparing yourself to maximize the value of your business, whether you're running it today and going to run it for the next 20 years, or you're going to look to sell it in 3 years. Maximizing those, improving your margins will put more money in your pocket, whether it's today, tomorrow, or in the long run.
Dave, this has been an incredible conversation to talk about, how do we increase the value for a someday exit? I really appreciate you sharing your perspective, your wisdom with us today.
Gene, thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
I'm going to recap just a little bit of this. You may not be ready to sell today, but you might want to sell someday. If you really do want to have an exit strategy where someone else is going to pay you money, then you want to think about that and start about it doing it today. The first thing you can actually do is really look at your business and be honest with yourself. Does it run without you? What are the key steps of that? That's one of the core things I do. So if I can help you with that, let me know. But I really, love what Dave was talking about, all the numbers in this, the gaps, the things that you aren't thinking about. There's more to it than just run the business and have, sales and have all this money and customers. You want to make sure you feel and understand those gaps. When you think about growth and courage, think about Growth Think Tank. As always, be with courage. We'll see you next time.